Welcome, everyone, to episode 115 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today, I welcomed an R&B act out of Dallas, Texas. His name is Les B. I just connected with him a few months ago. We talked about working on music and everything, and he also said he was a fan of the podcast, so I was glad to get him on an episode today. We talked about his influences coming up and how he got into singing and songwriting and R&B and everything like that. He actually talked about why he prefers to freestyle over writing and how it's kind of evolved over time for him in all his songs. He talked about the connection he has with his producer, and they've been working on music for the last 5 or 6 years closely with all his different drops. We also talked about, kind of the evolution of being an artist, looking back on your original releases when you first start out, and just seeing how you get better over time and really just building consistency. I think the thing I love most about this episode was what he mentioned about kind of just keeping his creative freedom and really just enjoying music, and keeping the fun in it, because a lot of us want to take it so seriously. We take it to the extreme and we lose our passion for it, and I think he's somebody that has kept his passion, and I really appreciate him for that. I'm looking forward to, hopefully working with him very soon, and I wish him the best of luck. And as always, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, welcome everyone to episode 115 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series, and today we have a really great R&B singer out of the Dallas area. I think I just connected with this guy a few months ago, actually. And shout out to him for listening to a lot of these episodes in the past. I'm glad to get him on here today. Les B is here. How are you, man?
Hey, what's up, man? Thank you so much for having me.
No problem.
I'm excited to be here, support your podcast.
Yeah, and like I said, I appreciate you even listening to the past episodes and telling me, because you texted me like last week and you were like, I really mess with what you're doing. Like, so I, that's what I do it for, is for artists to kind of hear other people's stories and everything. So the fact that you got something out of it, I think is great. And so pretty much to start off every episode, we have the guest give a bit of background. How did you get into music? How long have you been doing it? Just information for those that might not know you and what you do.
Gotcha. Well, for me, music has been one of those constant things in my life since I was like yay old. I can't even put an age on it, but I started writing songs when I was about 8, and it just kind of progressed from there. Even through college, even through high school, I'm going backwards, but it's just always been a thing where music is in my life. And I got to a point where I was just tired of singing everybody else's songs, and I ironically was heard by my producer by singing somebody else's song. But anyway, he and I linked up. Shout out to Gum, my producer, on Instagram, and from there we just kind of started releasing songs in 2018, and 21 songs later, we're still just doing music organically. And it's like my producer and I, we couldn't be more different. He's like my Korean brother from another mother. He's married, has a kid, the picket fence type of lifestyle, but although we're different in our everyday lives, what we have in common is the music. And so that's been really that's been life-changing, just working with him and just being able to put out music that's organic for myself. So, just music is what I love. That's what I do as a hobby.
Yeah, super awesome, man. It's great to hear that you've kind of been at it for a while as well. And I think that's one of those almost like opposites attract, you know what I mean? Like you meet certain people and it's like, I don't know if I would really like connect on that level. And then you guys kind of get into conversating and like working together, and it turns out that you have great chemistry and everything. So it kind of sounds like that is how it's gone. Now, has he done pretty much every record for you so far, like all your solo releases and everything?
Yeah, so he and I have done, I will say maybe 98% from the ground up, just between us and the studio and his genius. There's a few tracks where I've purchased from other producers outside of, but for the most part, it's really just a he and I type of thing. He does the music, he does the production. I give him a vibe, I tell him, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and he just hits me with a few ideas, and from there we just expound. And between what he has and what I bring to the table, it just works, man. It's just one of those things where we're so in sync, and without him I could not release songs without him, because who's going to do the mastering, who's going to do the mixing, who's going to vibe with me the way that we vibe. So I'm kind of pretty content there.
Yeah. And I think like especially when you first start out, like releasing stuff, like even if you already had musical background, I think it's great to have somebody there to kind of like learn together with, you know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah,
you guys
yeah, yeah.
learn from each other. That's for me. That was exactly what happened for me as well. Because I'm 6 years in now. Me and my friend,
Gotcha.
we started together. So he was like, "I'm gonna rap, and you're gonna like make the music and stuff." And that was kind of the whole plan from the beginning. So
Yeah.
we have just continued to work together and build up and just get better and better over time. And now we kind of are at the point where we know like what each other's preferences are. So like I kind of know his sound now to be like this is kind of what he wants presented with these ideas. And we
Right,
just start
right.
knocking out these ideas and just pick the best ones to kind of work on and like making the full records and things like that. So I think that's definitely something that like because obviously a lot of artists they kind of want to aim for the top immediately. They want to work with like so and so that they're a fan of or that they know in the area that might be already have a lot of buzz going, but they kind of undervalue that whole relationship aspect and really just
Right,
starting with the
right.
people that you're either friends with or you just met and you're like, I want to work with this person. We can see where we can take this over the years, and then one day you'll be at that level with that person. You know what I mean? So I
But
definitely,
that's the beauty of it, though.
yeah,
I'm super understated, and I'm very like laid back in what I do with the music. Like I don't feel like I'm competing with anybody. That's one of my strong points is I stay in my lane, and I don't have a huge following. I'm not on a shitload of playlists, but what I have been is consistent over the years, and it's so cool to hear the progression and to hear how much better things have gotten over the years.
mm-hmm.
I can listen, and I think any artist can, of any kind, any type, whether you're a painter or a singer or whatever, you can look at your piece of art and you can kind of pick it apart and you can say like, well, wow, this didn't sound good, this didn't look good. And so just from an artist perspective, I can go back and I can hear like, wow, okay, could have done better on that. And I can hear something that, or like my most recent track, I can hear, wow, this is, really good compared to the beginning. It's just a beautiful thing how you have that type of relationship with somebody who knows the music the way you do. And again, the underdog, I don't have to work with the biggest guy here in Dallas to make a good record. It really boils down to, and I don't have to be in, a studio. My producer has a studio, but, the point is that when we first started out, we weren't always in like a legit studio. It was like a fucking closet, you know what I mean? So a studio is a studio is a studio. It's about like making good music that sounds good to me first, and then hopefully everybody else likes it.
Exactly. And I think too, it's like everybody's got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? You don't just start at the highest level. It's like you got to kind of start and work your way up. And the equipment, I think a lot of people read too much into the equipment as well. It's like everybody looks at their favorite artist and they see all this fancy stuff, and it's like they make great art because they're great artists. You know what I mean? You could give them a USB mic and a cheap laptop, and they could still do that because they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? So it's like you just got to be creative with what you're doing and work under your circumstances to make it happen. So it sounds that's kind of like your guys' thing as well. It's just like we're gonna make great music no matter what. And figure it out. So I actually had an artist that I just interviewed like a few days ago, and she was talking about when she started. She made a lot of songs, and then she looked back on a lot of them, and she was like, "Oh, that was just not it." So for you, are there like some of those songs that you look back on from like 5 or 6 years ago, and you're like, "Thank God I never put that out"?
There's actually a couple of songs I put out.
Oh, yeah, you look
that
back
I wish
on.
I did.
Yeah.
But I think again, it's just one of those things where the artist in you always wants the best, and art is subjective. So maybe maybe I'm not in love with it, but there might be somebody who can respect it and who likes the vocals or who likes the message of the song. But there are definitely a couple of songs that I'm like, but there are also. A lot of my songs, and I feel like, wow, I'm proud of that. For me to have written the lyrics and for me to have, put together the vocal arrangements and to have taken time to really invest my emotions and my feelings in the song is worth something. So. It's like it's so crazy to say this because you hear especially singers say this all the time, like my songs are like my babies, but really they're like a labor of love, especially when you're writing, especially when it's coming from here. Nobody's writing my stuff, so it really is a true embodiment of who I am.
Yeah. I think it's way better to look back and be like, oh, I don't really like what I did 5 years ago, than to look at the new stuff and be like, oh, my old stuff was better. Because then you're kind of like regressing instead of like having progression, So it's like it's almost like a good thing to look back and say, wasn't my best, but for the
Yeah.
time, it was where I was, and I appreciate that. And
That's a good way to look at
yeah,
it too. I've never looked at it that way.
yeah.
I like that. I'm gonna actually use that going forward.
Yeah, because it's like you could obviously sit and dwell and be like, oh, I shoulda, I coulda, whatever. But it's like you can't change that. You can only change now, and where you are now. As long as you're being consistent and continuing to evolve as an artist, your music's gonna get better naturally anyway.
Yeah.
So you just gotta keep that in mind with every release and just keep going. So for you, obviously, you probably have a lot of different influences as far as like who you listen to growing up, who you listen to nowadays. Who are some of those artists, could be from any time, that really you when you hear them, you're like, I enjoy their work, and that's kind of like inspiring you to do what you do?
That's a really good question. And I have to give a lot of credit to my parents, because growing up, they had really eclectic ears. And so we grew up listening to like an array of different stuff, and so that really plays a role into who I am today. Like, no lie, like you can hear anything in my playlist from 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 Sade all the way to Lady A, or Alina Baraz, not and it's not even for a lot of the artists that I listen to, especially nowadays. It's not always about how great the vocals are. I think from a writer's perspective too, I definitely want to hear a message that resonates with me, or that I feel is really saying something. So, but to be more specific, like Tank, Joe, I said Sade already. Don Richard is one of my favorite artists. Actually, my track "Told Me Lost Me," it was, or the setup of the song at least was inspired by one of the songs from her latest bodies of work, where she basically took two songs and put them together. And I know that my release really is two songs. It's an interlude and it's a song. But I thought, like, why the hell not? Why not take these two songs, kind of meld them together, put them together? If somebody else can do it, why can't I? So, yeah, I mean, I could go on and give you like a whole list of artists, but it's just there's too many to name. I have too many artists that I respect.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like we're in that era where music is a lot more accessible. So you can really dive into a lot of different artists now. Even people that they might have been from 20, 30 years ago, you can discover their stuff now and dive in and be like, wow, these people are incredible, or this person's incredible. Shout out to Alina Baraz, though. That's a great one, because I actually, she's from Cleveland, so she's from where I'm from, like close to there. So a lot of people around here kind of know of her music and everything. There was a guy, I think he's from like New York, and I was talking to him. We didn't end up working on music, at least not yet, but we were talking about like different R&B acts, and he was like, yeah, Alina Baraz, like you should check her music out, because I had already known she was from Cleveland. I hadn't listened to any of her stuff though, but he kind of like got me to like check her out, and now I'm like, wow, like I'm a big fan of her music and everything.
She's great, breathy vocals, and I like she's just one of those types of artists, really, who I feel like you can just kick back and listen to. And that's, I feel like my thing is smooth R&B, and I kind of fall in love harder, so to speak, with artists who have that same kind of vibe. I don't have to sing about, the Gucci belt, because I don't have one. I don't have to sing about these materialistic things. I want to sing about life and love and emotions, and maybe it's the Pisces in me, maybe it's the artist in me, but I resonate more with people who have something to say, and she's one of those artists, so definitely a big inspo. Shout out to her.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to her next album, because I know she just did like a couple EPs last year. One was kind of like the brighter side, the other was kind of like a darker vibe too, so I thought that was kind of cool as well. Now, but
isn't it cool when artists release music when they kind of want to? I mean, I don't know what her situation is, but as far as me, like, I think, as a kid, any singer is like, oh, I want to have a record deal. But as I've gotten older, I just literally enjoy the fact that I can sing music and do it at my own leisure, like whenever I want to release a song, and really it's a hobby passion. It's not something that I'm not eating off of my music. There's stream revenue, but how big is that unless you're like a huge artist? But like the best thing about my situation is that I can just record and sing when I want to. That's super cool. I can release when I want to. Nobody's telling me you have to do it now. You have to do it now. Like, but there's no fun in that.
Yeah,
At least
exactly.
I don't think.
And it takes away the freedom aspect of it because music is supposed to be a very freeing experience
Yeah.
too, even as an
And
artist.
sometimes people don't have
So,
anything to say,
yeah,
you know?
yep, exactly. So I think that's great, 100%. So I know you did an EP. I think you dropped it earlier this year called My
Yeah.
Thoughts. So do you
Yeah.
want to kind of go into that and why you decided to kind of put that out when you did, and why you decided on like the amount of tracks and everything? Like, how did the whole process go?
So my Thoughts EP was something that was kind of talked about like months prior, and every year since I've done music with my producer, we release something on my birthday. Doesn't matter if it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday, whatever. And so just to pay, I guess, like homage to myself, we did. It was initially supposed to be a 3-song EP because the number 3 is my favorite number. I'm born on March 3rd, blah, 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 blah. But there was the last track, which is Thank You, Babe. And that kind of came about just like randomly. Like I heard the track when we were finishing up things with the EP, and I was like, yo, this is dope. Came home, and I freestyled, which most of my songs start from freestyles. And I freestyled this song, and I freestyled from, point A to point B. And normally what happens is I go back and I'll like kind of tweak or I'll, change things, make it work for when we get into the studio. But I just thought it was such a tight piece of work. I didn't have to really change anything. I just got back in the stew and we recorded it, and bam, turned into a 4-song EP. And I think the whole message of My Thoughts really was to dive into like my perspective. Like the first song, Love, is talking about, what is love? That's something that maybe more recently in my life has been lacking. And My Thoughts is a literal, it's literal. Like this is what's going on while I'm alone in my room thinking about whatever. So I wanted to kind of dive deep, but still have fun and not drag everybody to death with a body of work. Like I hate when, and no offense to anybody, but I personally don't like when artists, have like a shit ton of songs, or where every song is like 5 minutes long. And again, I know my most recent release, Told Me Lost Me, is a little bit on the long side because I put those 2 songs together. But generally speaking, I don't want to bore you to death with my music. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. I can quote unquote sing. I can quote unquote write a song. But at the same time, you want to mix it up a little bit. So I think people responded well to it. And most importantly, I'm proud of it. So.
Yeah. See, we can agree on that right there, because I was just talking to someone about this the other day. I'm like, 20-song albums shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
like, you want to do it, go ahead, but, like, that's not for me. Like, even listening to it, I'm going to be like, I'm going to skim through, find the tracks I like, take them, and I'll probably just be done. Like, I'm not going to sit there and listen to that full album, like, all the way through. But, like,
Exactly.
I feel if it's, like, 10 or, like, 7 to 10 or something like that, like, an album, I'm like, that's great. Like, I can sit and listen to that whole thing. But, yeah, it's like, whatever they want to do, you can do that and everything. But I think, like, it goes back to, too, like, I know people talk about, like, attention span or whatever, but it's like, I think even as, like, an artist, you kind of just want to give people the portions of it, you know what I mean? And then kind of over time, it adds up to the bigger picture. So if you put out, like, a few tracks here and there, they can sit with that easier and digest it a lot better, too.
And want more
from
exactly.
You, Yeah, so I definitely agree with that. Now, you mentioned, you freestyle most of your songs. So has that always been kind of the case for you, or did you kind of just naturally fall into that as an artist? Like, why is that kind of the method for you over just sitting down and kind of writing to the music?
Well, I started when I was a little kid, like actually writing songs out. The first song I wrote was about the dog we had to give away, the family dog. So I remember vividly writing that down. But yeah, I guess over time it's become one of those things where if I hear something, I immediately turn in a recorder of some sort and I just kind of go with the flow, maybe, and maybe the track and what I'm freestyling, maybe there's a huge juxtaposition there, but at the same time it fits. And so I find that it's more organic and it's more me to kind of go with the flow first. And don't get me wrong, just because I freestyle doesn't mean that I don't have to, go back and tweak things, because sometimes the words don't always fit. Sometimes, the vocality of it all isn't like meshing. So it's like you have to go back and fix things, but I like to be more organic with where I'm coming from. And although I'll freestyle and I'll go back and tweak it, I can kind of say it's a hybrid a lot of times. There's those instances like the song I told you about earlier where I just freestyle the whole way through, but a lot of times it's a mix of both. But initially it starts from here, from what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling from here, and just coming straight off the cuff.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to the whole kind of living in the moment as well. And
Yeah, yeah,
once you have that feeling and that idea, you kind of want to get it going and just kind of
yeah.
see where it goes. And then, like you said, if you have to come back to it, kind of work some things out, there's no problem with that. And
Right.
like you said again, it's like you have that time and that freedom to sit with it as long as you want. No one's telling you when to drop music. No one's telling you what to do
Right.
in that aspect. So like, why not just sit with it and make it the idea that you want? So I definitely think that is the way to go about it, and that's the way you get the best music at the end of the day. So 100% agree with that. I don't know if you've done any like live shows before or anything like that. Have you ever thought about doing like, I don't know necessarily like a tour, but like doing these different songs maybe from My Thoughts in like a live setting for people?
I'd love that actually, and I have done performances, and I was doing a lot of performances actually right before the pandemic hit. My last big thing was the House of Blues, which was so cool. I got to do like a showcase of some songs that I had out at the time, and then COVID hit, and then really it was just like me pouring myself into the studio. And so my goal going forward for this year, or for the rest of the year, really is to do some performances. Obviously, I'd still like to release some more music. That's always fun, but I want to get out there. I like being on the stage, and I would love to collab with somebody too, whether it's on a writing tip or literally doing like a duet or something like that. I kind of want to expand in that way, but performance wise, that is big, and that's on the radar. And actually, I got a message earlier today to perform tomorrow somewhere. It's a small gig. I'm gonna actually pass. I have something going on, but that is just to show that there are opportunities for me to get out there. I don't have to be so hungry to find it. So when the time is right, I definitely can see that happening.
Yeah, and it's great. It really is great that these opportunities are coming back, because there was that time period, the last like 2 years.
Exactly.
It's like people didn't even know if that was going to stick around at all, because venues were closing down and different things were happening, and no one knew what to think. But it's great to see that live entertainment, especially in music, is coming back, and now we see festivals being announced again and shows and things like that. So definitely great to hear that you have opportunities coming in as well, and good luck on all those shows, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
So you obviously mentioned more music. Is there anything like concrete planned? Like do you have songs kind of ready to go that you might drop before the end of the year? Like what else can we expect?
Yeah, so I have a couple of songs in mind right now. Both are two different kind of vibes, but my goal, or my goal in the past rather, has been to like release at least 4 songs per year. But based on my release this year, with My Thoughts, I already have 4, and then my most recent release, so I'm kind of above that, which I think is super cool. So I would like to do at least those 2 more songs, maybe 3 more if it fits. I mean, who knows? So much stuff is going on in the world that might spark me to, feel away or to, want to express myself in a different way. But I do know for sure that as long as music and singing is fun to me, I'm gonna do it. No pressure, not necessarily looking for anybody's validation, but I always want to do it as long as it's fun for me. So I can say that music's coming for sure.
Yeah.
As long as I'm in the mood to do it.
Yeah. I was about to say, it has to come naturally. You know what I mean? You can't force it. You got to let it come as it is and everything. Yeah. And obviously present it as it is as well to people and just see what they think about it. But as long as you feel good about it, that's all that matters.
Yeah, for sure.
So last few questions here. These are questions I ask on every episode. And the first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago, maybe give yourself a piece of advice or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
I definitely would tell myself to not put so much pressure on it and just have fun. For sure, I put a lot of pressure on myself in the past, just in different aspects, not even when it comes to music, but I can look back and in retrospect, maybe some opportunities were missed because I was so head heavy and not enjoying the moment. And now as I continue to get older, I've learned to kind of lean into that having fun aspect. And that does also refer to the music. I have a lot more fun now than I did in the past, because it's just coming from a fun and natural place, and I'm not so worried about what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, man. No doubt.
Yeah, thank you.
So if we flip it then and we say 10 years from now, where do you think you envision yourself in your career and your life?
Career-wise, so regarding music, I would love to just continue to release, like I said, as long as it's fun. I would also be so open to writing for other artists or collabing with other artists, and really just I'm not the type of guy who has this linear view on life, so I can't really say where I want to be per se, like exactly. But I can definitely say that I want music to be in my life, for sure.
Yeah. It's so hard because, like, every time I ask that question, a lot of people are like, I don't know. It's like, it is such a long time, and it's like the uncertainty, you know what I mean? Like, you can't always sit there and be like this, but yeah, it's definitely like you almost want the same but elevated, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Exactly.
I can agree with that for sure.
So do you have any final words of wisdom today for the listeners?
Words of wisdom. I would say to anyone who's listening, just to follow your dreams and to keep doing what you're doing, as long as it makes your heart tick. And art is subjective. It may not be for everybody, but as long as it sounds good to you, as long as it looks good to you, keep it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. The beauty of creativity right there, 100%. So, man, that's all I have for you today. Like I said, I appreciate the support. I appreciate you doing what you're doing, man. Keep dropping great music. Obviously, we might be working soon, so I'm looking forward to that and everything.
Yeah, I'm excited.
We might have to do a part 2 of this eventually as well, so we'll see,
For sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, everyone, for listening today. That was episode 115. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit the support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send any funds. Feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. So we'll see you then. Thanks, everyone.